let's call to order this, the April 25th, 2022 meeting of the Westford School Committee. And we're going to start with recognitions.
Are we starting with a pledge?
Recognition is on the...
said first.
It is too, actually, yeah.
We're doing it first.
Oh,
With a pledge.
Right?
wow.
With the thing.
So,
It's not a surprise, though. It's on the agenda.
so we do.
This is in recognition. I know I'm not being picked up from the mic. This is in recognition for 5 amazing years of service.
Thank you very much.
To our committee and to the
And how many
Westford Public
policies?
Schools.
Tonight?
5. Yeah.
5 years of service and X number of
It really
policies.
is. I mean, I can't believe it. You know,
I know.
you know that I can't believe that
I know.
this is your last meeting, but we're so grateful for the past 5 years and the energy and the commitment and the sense of humor and the caring. And so you're going to go and bring all of that to Neshoba Tech, and that's really cool as well. But thank you.
Thank you. It's been an honor to be here, and it's been an honor to work with the people that I've worked with. I could not have asked for better colleagues, and I do hope that in my new position at Neshoba, we can have, more collaboration between the district and Neshoba. And they've already assigned me to WestfordCAT and the policy subcommittee, so clearly they saw me coming. So, but thank you all.
Awesome. Good luck.
And now we will do the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next up is our consent agenda. There's quite a bit on there.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know, well, first I guess I'll entertain the motion.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as outlined on tonight's meeting agenda.
Second.
Second. Any questions or comments? We've got the warrants, we've got the extra warrants, we've got different meeting minutes, our monthly budget transfers, which we usually have on there, our Special Education Stabilization Reserve Fund transfers on there, and then we have our memorandum of agreement with the Westford Education Association for units A, B, C, G, and our academic coaches for a 1-year extension. Thank you to the WEA, thank you to administration, the negotiating teams for getting that done. I think that was really great. So any questions or comments?
I know that when we actually talk about the calendar, one of the things in the language is the starting date of the contract. So if there are any change, will always still stays the same.
So that stayed the same. We started to have some conversations, but that is not reflected in the 1-year agreement.
Mm-hmm. And then the next year calendar is done anyway, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Pat, briefly, can you tell us what other teaching services under DOE function? Is that kind of like a hodgepodge of stuff, or?
I'm sorry, what are you referring to?
I'm looking at the, sorry, I should have specified. On the FY 2022 March budget transfers, there's a line that says other teaching services.
There's a function number next to it, hold on. Other teaching services, that would be teacher assistants.
Okay, thank you.
Now that I said that, let me confirm.
You can get back to me.
Is her confirming? I was going to say, does it change your vote?
No, it doesn't, but
I'll
yeah.
take a look, but I'm pretty sure that's what.
Thank you, Pat.
Any other questions? Comments? Okay, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, we'll open it up for public comment. For people who maybe don't know, you can come to the mic, give public comment, state your name and your address. You also, if you can sign in with your name and address so that we can make sure we get it recorded in the minutes properly, that would be great. If you're online and want to make public comment, raise your hand in Zoom and we can pull you in. And we ask people to stick to 2 minutes so we get a chance for everybody. I think that's it.
Good evening. My name is Amy Collins. I am completing my 8th year as a teaching assistant at day school. In addition, I have worked at the extended school year program for 6 of the past 7 years. I enjoy my job, and I work hard to make school a successful place for children. As I'm sure you're aware, teaching assistants provide the services and accommodations specified in students' individualized education programs. Since I and many other teaching assistants have shared with you in emails and in person specific details about our jobs, tonight I want to share with you some ways in which teaching assistants play important roles in the overall functioning of Westford schools. Although responsibilities differ among the schools, examples include supervising before-school care on conference days, supervising daily bus arrival and bus dismissal, supervising daily vehicle drop-off and vehicle pickup, supervising lunch and recess, collaborating with special education and regular education teachers, co-running after-school clubs, chaperoning groups on field trips, and providing academic, social, and emotional support to regular education students in inclusion classrooms. As a group, teaching assistants bring a variety of skills, education, and experience to our roles. Many of us have worked previously in other fields. Many of us are parents. Some of us are parents of students with IEPs. We work as teaching assistants because we care deeply for the children we support. In conclusion, we respectfully ask you to recognize the valuable work that we perform on a daily basis, and we ask for fair pay for our TAs. Thank you.
For folks for comment in the room or on Zoom. And apologies to those on Zoom. I know we started the Zoom meeting a hair after the very beginning, so apologies for that. Any other comments? Okay, thank you. Oh, okay, you're just, yeah. Okay, informational updates. Superintendent update will be first.
Sure. So before the break, Ms. Watson, the theater teacher at Stony Brook, shared with me that 4 of the Stony Brook students were honored in the Massachusetts Educational Theater Guild monologue writing contest. It's a new thing that's only been taking place for a couple of years, and the Stony Brook students have done very well. Grace Hinkle got first place, Abigail Curran third place, and Sky Lockery and Elise Holmes both had honorable mention. And so out of the 5 awards, 4 of them were Stony Brook students, and that was pretty excellent. And the cool piece about this is that not only was their work honored, but what METG does is that they put it together in a collection at times, and other students can then also benefit from their work because they're writing about, you know, their experiences as middle school students, which I think is fantastic. And then we also found out that Westford Public Schools was named one of the 12 districts in Massachusetts and one of 738 districts across the country to receive, once again, the Best Communities for Music Education Award in 2022, which is great. They actually win that quite a lot, which is nice. But that's my 2 updates.
Very good. School committee updates.
Yeah, the policies are.
You're covered. You're covered. Stay tuned. Gloria.
Just a quick one. Westford Academy Last Night Committee is seeking volunteers. Last night is an all-night lock-in event that happens after graduation. They are very much looking forward to having it in person again this year, in all of its glory, to celebrate our class of 2022 seniors. So if you've never volunteered for it before, it is a fantastic experience and a lot of fun. So please visit walastnight.org, and there's all the information about how to volunteer. You do need to be quarried, and even if you're quarried with the schools, you have to do a separate quarry with WA Last Night. So that's why they start looking for people early, so they can make sure and work through that process for all the volunteers. So I encourage you to check it out if you've never done it before. It's a lot of fun.
And it really is amazing. I mean, it's, just do it. Volunteer. I mean, I recommend volunteering it just to see it, because it's a, it's a spectacle. I mean, it's just in a good way. I had no idea. I just had no idea walking in whenever I first did it a few years ago. I was like, are you kidding me? We do this every year? Anyway.
I just wanted to share that at their April 12th meeting, the select board approved our first ARPA request that was highlighted as a time-sensitive one, which was the funding for the Bridge to Success Summer Intervention Program. And they are meeting again tomorrow and have a few called out on their agenda, which are the other ones that we internally had identified as high priority. So we're looking forward to following that process. And as a personal update, not personal, but not, anyway, another hat I wear has been on the Access to Town Meeting Committee. And I just wanted to share that in that same select board meeting, we presented our official recommendations after doing a 800 response resident survey. There was also a subgroup that worked to kind of crowdsource ideas about town meeting attendance from other communities. And we kind of rolled all of that into a list of 34 recommendations that I feel really excited about to see be put into practice and implemented, and some of them may really help with especially the attendance of families with young students, like highlighting a spot that works at least for the WA field, that would be like family-friendly seating, sort of picnic style, so that you don't have to think about childcare and dropping your kid off for an unknown number of hours, but could be like sort of in the back of the field and still be paying attention. So there's a whole list of them that I feel really proud of as our work on that committee, and I am excited to see them kind of roll out with this June meeting and hope that it translates into some increased attendance for that very, very important meeting. Awesome. That's all.
And I already told you this, but I'll say it here. You should be proud. I was super impressed with the list. And it's like, there's some real tangible things that can really be done. And I, in the short amount of time that the committee took to get to this result was pretty impressive.
Yeah, it was
So
kind of,
thanks for doing that.
basically we met through the winter and came up with some real stuff, so.
Very good.
Great.
And while we're thinking about other things in town, we've got a joint meeting with the town DEI committee to look at the town and school survey results. So that's sort of an, something to keep in mind that's Wednesday night at 7. And so that agenda, thanks to Valerie, we remembered to get the agenda out at the last minute for that. So that's out there and posted, and I'll send a reminder probably Wednesday morning or something, just so we have it in our inboxes. And we have a town election coming up a week from tomorrow. Is that possible?
I know.
I don't feel like it, right?
Yeah.
I remember like, it's down the line. I'm sure Sean doesn't feel
Yeah.
like it's coming.
Let's go with that.
Good luck. And please go vote. We have new voting locations this year, so go to westfordmass.gov. You've gotten a mailer with your voting location, but go to westfordmass.gov if you don't know, and find out where you're voting. And I'll see some of you at Westford Academy voting.
And it's only 2 places, so if
It's
you
only 2
turn up at the academy and you really should be at Stony Brook, that's it narrowed down for
Close.
you. It's,
And
yeah.
You're 10 minutes.
Exactly.
The URL to check is actually really easy. It's all one word, wheredoivote.ma.com. We'll bring you right to the Secretary of State
Perfect.
website to check. in case you lost that little white postcard that came in the mail,
Yeah.
like some of us.
I like how the website has his face on it too. That's something you
Yes.
might want to think about. Your
Secretary
face
Gal.
on it. Okay, I think that's it. Anything else from the committee? All right. Hannah, you had your hand up. Were you just ready to go with student
Oh, no,
update,
I
or
was
did you have a
gonna
comment?
ask where I can find where I'm voting.
Where I can vote.
But
Where
I'm
do I
assuming I'm
vote?
probably
MA.com.
I screwed up the URL. Where do I
Yeah.
vote?
Is this your first time voting?
It is.
It's exciting.
Yeah,
For you.
I'm so excited. Yeah. Me too.
That's awesome.
Thanks for voting.
Yeah.
Tell your friends to vote.
I will. I was doing a voting registration drive at lunch like a week ago.
Oh, good.
Oh, that's so great.
But yeah, student updates.
Good
So
segue.
next week is the start of AP exam testing. So all our AP students will be off and running Tuesday morning.
Yeah, it'll be a very busy week.
And I
that
think
week.
most of them, if not all of them, are in person this year, paper and pencil,
Yeah.
which is
I think all of them.
very nice. I think all of them. Another thing, we have a large amount of students at ICDC for DECA, which is the international competition in what it's called, international,
Sorry,
but
sorry,
it's
sorry.
it's
Yep.
national. So just congratulations to all of
Yeah.
them. It's a pretty big deal. I think Westford Academy has one of the largest DECA programs in Massachusetts.
And the fact that so many of our students are going to like the
Yeah.
international level is really,
Very impressive.
yeah. So following the AP week, the next week itself is just a big week, not only because of APs, we have CATIL at the end of the week, which is exciting, and then the seniors soon have prom this month, and then also next week is Teacher Appreciation Week, and so Student Council is really excited to put that together, especially coming off of the COVID year that teachers have had to deal with. So we have some really exciting things planned for them, like our breakfast, the typical Kimball's ice cream. I've been told if that does not happen, a lot of teachers will be upset this year. So Kimball's ice cream, a lot of fun things. So we're excited to just honor not only teachers, actually, all of our faculty at Westford. We make sure. So yeah, a lot going on in this next couple weeks.
Wait, so the ice cream is at the breakfast?
So those two
No,
separate things?
no, yeah. So we
I'm
try.
all for ice cream at breakfast, honestly. I'm not judging.
Just put cereal on top. It becomes
Two separate events.
Usually we try and do something for the teachers every day. So one day we'll do breakfast, and then usually on the Friday we'll do ice cream for them. We'll throw a lunch, do some things here and there. So, yes, not together, not together.
And this is a tradition?
I mean, yeah, we've been doing it for some time now, from what I understand. Really, yeah. But I think this year we definitely want to make it big for them, just because last year was a little bit restricted through COVID. So, yeah.
Is the building kind of quiet right now with the seniors out?
No, honestly, actually, it's weird. I would say it's actually more active. Like, you see a lot of people walking through the hallways because seniors are coming and going to the library. Some of them just stay for a couple classes. Yeah.
Very lively.
Yeah, it's very lively.
The traffic's better in the morning, though, I will tell you that.
Much better.
Yes.
Much better.
Yes.
Now I can find parking spots
Yeah.
every day.
We were running out the door today. I'm like, wait, we don't have to worry. We're going to sail right through.
I know, but that's not good because every day, the time I leave my house gets
It's gonna get everybody's gonna.
a little bit later. 1 minute later every day.
It's just waiting.
Today I surprised myself. I was 5 minutes early, and I left 10 minutes early.
So tomorrow, you can leave like 10 minutes later than you
That's
did?
the reasonable conclusion.
That's how math works. Thank you for the update. Anything else? All right. Thank you. Okay, on to business items on the agenda. Our 7:30 agenda item, our new Director of Equity, Curriculum, and Instruction announcement.
Yes.
Very exciting.
So I'd like to introduce you to Miss Magali Rodriguez Ronan. She actually has written this really beautiful bio, and so I'm
hoping you will read it.
I'm gonna read it instead of
Okay.
you talking about it. It was really good, and I was like, oh, I'm excited to read this for you.
Thank you. I'm
And then
excited to be
and then
here.
they have a bunch of questions for you.
Okay.
No, they don't.
I love answering questions.
I know you do. Yes, you do. Okay. Ms. Magali Rodriguez Ronan comes to us with over 2 decades of urban teaching and administrative experience and is a proud product of Lowell Public Schools. She's the daughter of Oscar Rodriguez and Maria Williams, who moved here from the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico. Being the product of a teenage couple with lots of extended family, friends, and community, Magali witnessed firsthand the impact equity has on marginalized communities who struggle with lack of education and then the 20th century skills, low socioeconomic status, and lack of opportunity to improve one's circumstances. Growing up in a working-class neighborhood in Lowell and being bused to a middle-class neighborhood for elementary school after completing kindergarten in a school centered across from City Hall and the housing projects, it was then she began to recognize the differences between the haves and have-nots. Her public education experience was the key for approaching equity for herself by finding opportunities offered to her through the pre-K-12 system. It is with this personal equity lens, educational theory, skills, and experience that Magali comes to Westford Public Schools and has expressed her commitment to pushing us all to take a closer equity approach to support all of our students, educators, teaching assistants, and additional staff members to become expert learners so that we can all become lifelong learners. She's a proud mother of her 11-year-old daughter, Corey Jane Ronan, who enjoys watching her play softball and basketball and performs in plays. I have a question. Is she enjoying watching you play, or are you enjoying watching her play?
No,
Because it could be both.
No. I'm
Okay.
not an actress, but
Okay.
she does little plays at school and is starting to get a little taste for theater.
Awesome. And in her free time, Magali enjoys jogging, walking her dog, gardening, taking 1 or 2 courses. That one, again, right? She enjoys being a lifelong learner, which is great, and spending time with her family, pets, and friends on day trips, lounging, and vacations. And we are thrilled to have you join us. She's here tonight. She's actually going to be helping participate in some interviews, being on the other side of the table, which will be very nice.
Yes.
But she won't officially be joining us until July 1. But we are excited to have her, and we welcome you.
I'm super excited to be here. I used to drive my parents. We had 1 car, and I remember we used to drive down to Boston Road to pick up my mom from work and then drive her back home. So those are my memories from coming here.
Right.
So I really think that equity is about making sure that we welcome all of our families into our curriculum. And a way to do that is to also think about what are the biases in our curriculum. How do we make it more equitable and inclusive? And one of the ways that I truly believe is through instructional design, particularly universal design for learning. And I know that's something that this district has played with or dabbled in, but it's not something that is very structured across and cohesive across the district. So I'm looking forward to, applying all my skills and ideas to really making an impact here in Westford Public Schools. I truly believe in public education, even though I thought Westford Academy was a private school most of my life. So in that sense, what drives me for equity too is the simple Chinese proverb of tell me I forget, show me I remember, and involve me I understand. And for us, that is using all 3 parts of our brain, activating and engaging all those parts. And so I shared this with the school committee. I shared this, but the sweet spot is if we do all 3 of those, if we include the brain or the head, the hand, and the heart, then we are looking at the whole child.
I didn't actually share that with them yet.
Oh, okay.
So I apologize.
That's okay.
This is a
So
preview. Spoiler alert.
It's a
I will say
preview.
she's created.
I whipped this up today with my little thing for you. So the UDL guidelines are here, and it really is based on brain research and how we learn, and the why, the what, and the how. Particularly with equity, I really believe that if we engage kids in the process standards of how do we do this, how do we think strategically, then we are preparing them for the 21st century skills. Because they have to communicate, they have to be creative, they have to be able to collaborate and think critically. I mean, I wish those were things that were taught to me early on in my schooling, but was refined throughout.
Yeah, I like it, and what you put together with the hand, the heart, the hand, the heart, and the head, and then connecting it with UDL. The links, if you're not familiar with UDL, there's an active link that you can go to. There's also the 7 forms of bias that she's attached to it, which I think will be nice, and you'll be able to kind of
Yeah, it's
look and see.
a one-pager infographic.
I love it. Can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I will say, throughout this process, I think the shift in this direction was a very exciting one. And on paper, it was unique, and a lot of districts have gone to a DEI coordinator or director in and of itself, whereas Dr. Chu really wanted to infuse it kind of into the veins of the district and felt that this type of position is a better inroad. And on paper, while we were very excited, we were trying to envision what type of person that is. Somebody who is a curriculum, instruction, pedagogy sort of nerd, right?
Yes.
As well as has the experience, the training around the DEI, and merging those two together. And while it was a little bit of an unknown going into the interview process, I do think Magali helped us kind of solidified, aha, this is what we're looking for. So we're thrilled to have her on board, and I think the committee was very excited as well.
Ask a lot of questions and follow the lead, and also try to push.
Great.
That's great. And I feel like we have the privilege of like getting you tonight here, and so
Thank you.
before we officially have you in the district, so it's really nice to have you, and really appreciate you coming out tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think I speak on behalf of everybody. We're excited
Thank you.
for this new chapter for you and for the district.
I am very excited. New beginnings all around.
Fantastic.
Nice to meet you all, and I look forward to meeting and talking with you one-on-one. I like to engage stakeholders as much as possible, so
Great.
I welcome any questions.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank
so
you.
much. Thank you. You are certainly welcome to stay and hang out. However, I will say, as you saw already, sometimes
Yeah.
people come and say
And-
their piece and move on. And so if you
Well, I
need
hope
to leave,
to-
we understand.
I hope to also nurture the teaching assistants or paraprofessionals as well, because we do a lot of cross-training too.
Thank you.
Thank
Great,
you.
thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next up, we have Clean Energy and Sustainability Committee presentation with Catherine Hinkle, who first was online and thought you were going to be online. I'm like, oh, I guess we'll be, and then you showed up. So
No, well, I came online and then I was like, oh, they're all there. I should just go be there.
Oh,
that would be so
either
much
way was
better.
fine. We should have told you. Either way was fine.
Yeah.
But we're glad you made it over.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. So I think you guys have a copy of my slide deck in your
Yep.
packet.
And I'll pull it up as well.
Okay, cool. That'd be great. I could wing it.
We won't make you do that.
Thanks. Well, but thank you so much for having me this evening. So I'm Catherine Hinkle. I'm a member of the Clean Energy and Sustainability Committee. I'm also a mom of 3 school-age kids, and I'm a local environmental high school science teacher. I think that's all the parts. And so I'm here this evening to talk to you about our roadmap to bring Westford down to net zero carbon emissions by 2050, as well as discuss different ways that our committee can partner with you all to help improve that throughout the schools as well. Cool. All right, so yeah, I'll be introducing you all to our roadmap goals, our specific recommendations that we have, both for residents as well as for the town officially as well. And again, talk about what are specific tasks that we need to achieve in order to reach that goal, and talk about the different ways that we can work together to leave our world a little bit more climate resilient for our children. So this work all began in the fall of 2020 when town meeting tasked us with coming up with a plan. And so the select board charged a task force with coming up with this plan, which is what I'll be talking with you about. It's been in development for a while now. And then I also wanted to mention that recently we've begun working with different youth in the community. They've reached out to us and expressed interest in the work of decarbonization. So I'm excited to also talk with you about how that might play out in the schools. Right. So some of you may know that about a year ago, Massachusetts passed some pretty sweeping climate change bill. The big one being, so this idea that by 2050 we need to have a net carbon emission, of 0, and that unless every individual town and community is, unless we are all taking part, that won't happen. So it's one of the reasons why we wanted to develop this roadmap so that we could help make progress towards that goal. And this is certainly in keeping with different federal goals. So President Biden also recently set a very similar goal with some benchmarks of, by 2030, having 50% of vehicles that are being introduced to the road being EV, and then having a 100% renewable energy grid by 2035, which is coincidentally the graduating year of our rising kindergartners. So that means a lot of changes are on the horizon for within the span of our cohort of children that we're working with right now. And of course, all of this comes on the heels of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and their most recent report that came out last summer, just really emphasizing that the time for change is now, that we do have a window of opportunity as long as we take that opportunity to decarbonize now. And some good news to go along with all of this, because certainly there's a lot of bad news. But a huge part of all of this will certainly be getting new energy sources. And fortunately, costs for things like wind and solar, getting improved battery technologies, all of these costs are falling and making it more possible for us to incorporate into our plans. So this plan has been in development since this past spring and summer, and we do have, the roadmap was published in November, and it's available on our committee website. And we're right now in this part of community engagement. We're all talking to all of the different committees and having public forums and neighborhood group discussions to try to get the word out. And we are looking forward to a select board endorsement for this plan later this spring. And the plan itself was not developed out of thin air or reinventing the wheel. So a lot of time was put into looking and researching into what surrounding and neighboring communities are doing for their own plan, as well as taking that and catering it to our own development needs in Westford, and specifically looking at what our current greenhouse gas use is in town, and making our goals actionable off of that. Which brought us to our baseline of where we're at in Westford in terms of our greenhouse gas emissions. So we did find out that the majority of our energy is used from both buildings. The majority is coming from our building use, and then transportation. And the next slide gives us the exciting nitty-gritty details. This is from 2017. What this allows us to see is that passenger vehicles is actually the greatest emitter of greenhouse gases in Westford. And in terms of school use, thinking through how our students are arriving at school and going home, that transportation piece, and thinking through how many of them are coming in passenger vehicles, it affects not only greenhouse gas emissions, but also thinking through what are some local emissions that are being put out from idling cars and just having all of those cars on the road in and around our schoolyards. You'll also notice that municipal buildings are a pretty low fraction. Those are certainly ones we want to target with our roadmap, because the public buildings we have certainly set an example for how we all can move forward in our own choices. So we have 4 major goals for our roadmap. So that has to do with where our energy is coming from, what choices we're making, and trying to cut out consumption of fossil fuels. But also really importantly, it has to do with working with the efficiency of the systems we already have to make sure that we're not only conserving and not using as many greenhouse gases, but also conserving financially and making the best of that. We are also looking towards producing more of our energy locally through solar panels, and then really trying to leverage our open space and green spaces for carbon sequestration. So the first goal, again, is we want to green the grid and get to 100% green electricity by 2050. And so certainly a lot of that is going to have to do with leveraging our rooftops in and around town for solar energy, encouraging people to take advantage of our Power Options program. But I think in terms of schools, where we'll talk about is where we might be able to incorporate solar panels. And then certainly improving the efficiency of the systems that we already have. And then when we do have to make choices, when it's time to replace aging systems, making sure that the systems we're replacing with are efficient as much as possible. So Amoresco, which is an engineering company, has been coming through, I'm sure you know, looking at how we're using all of our buildings. So we're really hoping to really utilize their recommendations for how we can be more efficient in our current systems. And then in terms of the transition to electric vehicles, like I mentioned, more than 40% of our town's overall emissions are coming from our transportation and our passenger vehicles. So really taking a hard look at how we are working with transportation in town, and looking forward to potentially replacing our aging vans and buses and things like that as that comes up with electric systems. And the last one, of course, with carbon sequestration and thinking about how we use our open and green spaces. As an environmental science teacher, I certainly see this as the biggest opportunity to engage youth and have them understand the importance of why we have our open spaces and our conservation land, so that they understand, why we need it, the important role it plays in sequestration, and making sure that it continues to be preserved into the future. So we have a, kind of a huge bullet list of things and recommendations of things we'd like to get done. I think the ones that are probably most pertinent to your committee have to do with thinking through new buildings as well as renovations of buildings, like when we need to do that work, how do we leverage the electrical systems? There are a lot of wonderful incentives at the state level right now to help municipal buildings take advantage of different incentives and cost-saving measures and deals on different heat pump systems and the like for when we do need to upgrade the systems, and those are things we certainly want to be looking at. And to that end, we did target and specify that we think we need a dedicated staff to be able to kind of oversee, take in all the information from Amoresco, all the recommendations, thinking through all of the different federal and state grants we could take advantage of, and how to best utilize all of our different volunteer groups. And the good news is that we have that. That's the next slide, please. Thank you. So we did receive a grant earlier this year that's going to allow for hiring a full-time person. This will be someone we share with the town of Carlisle, which I think will be a wonderful partnership. So it'll also allow us to hear more about what some other communities are doing nearby. So this person will hopefully be beginning in the summertime. But it's a really wonderful opportunity to help us kind of oversee all of these efforts. So in terms of sort of the 4 areas of highest impact we're hoping to talk with you all about has to do with certainly transportation, looking through energy efficiency upgrades, upgrading to electric when we can, thinking through solar systems for school roofs when it's possible, and supporting any of the recommendations that Amoresco gives us in terms of our energy efficiency. And areas where we would love to support your efforts are certainly areas like when students are working on their STEM science fair projects. If anything has to do with energy and sustainability, we'd love to help when we can, as well as 8th graders with their civic projects, since they often need to reach out to community members. We want to be available to help them out with that. As well as support different clubs and youth involvement. We've already had youth reach out to us and ask how they can help our decarbonization efforts around town. And of course, we always want to be communicating with you guys to update you on our work as it pertains to things happening with your committee, as well as interested parties in the schools and what they would like to know. So we are hoping that you will adopt the sustainability policy, which I know you're being presented with tonight. And my colleague on the committee, Erica Cole, will be back in 2 more weeks to answer more questions and go into more detail about. We're also hoping that you will adopt a sustainability goal for both district and school improvement plans, and have year-end achievement goals with those, and evaluate different green alternatives when we are looking at new building modifications. and potentially working with D-Bus to think through what might an electric future look like for a fleet. Considering things like when we do need to replace our special education vans, how we might be able to do that using electric systems. School buses are certainly well set up to work well with electric with the frequent starts and stops. They provide us a good opportunity to use that. So thank you so much for your time, and I'm happy to take any questions or any feedback you have.
I just want to, thank you for coming out. It's another committee that in a very short amount of time has done so much. Like, it's really impressive. So thanks to you and everybody on the CEASC, is that right?
Yeah.
CEASC, yeah. CEASC.
And with that, Sean, you gotta.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'd encourage anyone who's looking at the presentation, there's a great link to the actual survey, right, which has some more detailed stuff. One of the things that I found striking was that, was it 40%, 41% or so was coming from car usage, right? You know, I guess I just presumed everything was coming from residential housing and stuff, and that wasn't as big of a part of the pie chart. So, in terms of that, right, like a lot of these have long-term cost implications, things like that, replacing vans and, you know, moving towards that. But at least for the immediate future, I don't know, maybe I've missed it, but some of the schools don't even have signage about like idling and stuff if you are waiting, you know, to turn off the cars. I think WA has something, right?
Yeah.
Is it?
Well, and I do know those signs are, like, you can certainly just request those. That's an
Yeah.
initiative I've done at my own school.
Okay, great.
Where Mass DEP was happy to send anti-idling signs to
Yeah.
any and all schools,
I-
free of charge.
It just strikes me as something that's like a low-cost thing that we could be doing now, right? And like, and a lot of folks, especially in a community like ours, people arrive early and like to wait for their students to get off. So,
We had students make a number of them.
Did you? Okay.
That's
Last,
wonderful.
last year, when we had come back to school and but because a lot of the schools had also changed the traffic patterns.
Right,
So it was
'cause of
like, they
COVID, right.
put them like as temporary signs that didn't make it to the winter. You know,
Okay.
but it was the right idea, and I think that's definitely something that we can look at and figure out how we can do that, and even then make them, they don't necessarily have to be the same for each age level. You know, they
Certainly.
could have student involvement as well.
Yeah.
And thankfully, it seems like more and more cars have the auto shut off for idling, right? I mean, that's becoming more common, or hybrid or electric, so that's good too. But yeah, I think we have the policy, but we know that people don't necessarily remember, especially when it's cold or when it's hot, to turn off their engine while waiting. So that'd be great.
Yeah.
Other comments? Alicia?
So you mentioned that Erica was working with us on this. So all through the winter, Erica, Cole, and Matt Riegert were actually working with the policy subcommittee on the policy that goes up for the first read tonight. And I just wanted to say thank you because, one, it was phenomenal to be working with Erica because she was, you know, the policy champion before I was on the committee. So it was super fun to bring her back and have like a policy reunion. And she found some really great draft policies for us that we built the policy that's up for the first read tonight from. And I really look forward to her being here at the next meeting so she can answer questions for that. But I did just want to say thank you again to your committee because I don't think we certainly would have tried, but I don't know that we would have known where to start if we hadn't had that guidance. So I do want to say thank you for that.
So one of the things I'm curious is like probably can be done immediately. Like how do we actually reduce waste? Like in the cafeteria, how much food are we wasting? And then and are the food actually really like the kids they want to eat or they don't want to eat and then just throw it away and then come home say, hey mommy, I'm hungry, and then have another meal. That if we can actually make this food, I know like a lot of food probably is like not even warm, right, for the kids. I think the students probably know more than I do. I heard some kids like they complain about like the food is like not really being tasteful, and then like frozen food just like microwave or heat it up, so it's not really tasteful, and then they don't really eat it, just throw it away. Food costs energy, and then like For a lot of places, they don't even have enough food, but we're wasting a lot of food. So
Yeah, no, thank you for that. That's a really important piece of looking at an overall sustainability element, right? And that, right, we're transporting that food to come to the school. I know many schools do things, small things like share carts. When students are taking parts of their meal and they don't want it, they put it into a cart that other people can take. So there certainly are measures, and we'd be happy to talk with you all more about that, if that'd be something you'd be interested in.
the other thing, I don't know, maybe it changed. Is like, I remember like I used to have to sign a lot of like forms, like take home all the stuff. Can we or like digitize that? I know probably it's why you're doing that right nowadays.
We have digitized a lot of that,
Okay.
yes, yeah.
Yeah, because like sending like 20 different like acknowledgement
Yeah.
or all of like forms, like it's not the same thing.
Right.
Great point.
I have another one. Catherine, this Amoresco? Yeah. That study, so that's looking at school buildings also?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's looking at any town-owned building? All right.
Yep.
And when do we expect results on that?
I know they've wrapped up their work. I'm not sure when the
Okay.
recommendations are going to
Yeah.
be given.
But Paul's been working with them the whole time because he's
Great.
been working as the director of facilities for both the town and the schools.
Okay.
So he's been collaborating with them.
So maybe we could get Paul or someone from Catherine's committee, once those results do come out, get it on the agenda, right?
Yeah.
Because I'd be
I
interested
think that
to
was
see,
part of
like-
I think that was already part of the plan.
Okay,
That
great.
part of the plan is that there
Fantastic.
will be a specific presentation for you.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Just wanted to add on to that, because I served on that screening committee that we looked at, I think, six or seven different companies to fill that role, and served on that capacity to help choose Amoresco, and sat through those interviews. And it's really exciting what those kind of companies do and how the impact they can have on municipalities. So I think there's some really exciting things in our future, that role will really help us shepherd us through that. So
And certainly, like, from the building standpoint, right, we have the biggest footprint of the whole town, right? Because, I mean, 9 schools, and, you know, we take up a lot of space, so.
And that's been a part of the whole Blanchard Roof project. They've been collaborating with Amoresco, and so Paul has been working with all of them. So that was part of the different pieces that that we've come to you about as we've just been approving things. One of the things is that they're making sure that whatever design goes into play, it would be appropriate for solar. But that then would require that's a whole different aspect if we decided to then put solar on it and the costs involved with that. But Amoresco is working with the OPM and the designers to make sure that all of these different things are being considered so that we can be prepared for the future.
Great.
That's actually really huge because we've asked about solar panels in the past, and we've been told that there are certain buildings that just can't support it. Their roofs they're just not made for it. So that's huge. That's a major step. So yeah.
I'd just like to follow up on the sustainability coordinator. I'm assuming we will have access to this coordinator, that it's not just on a town level. So I think just to note that maybe when they do start and come on board, I think it would be really beneficial to just have a conversation with them to see what kind of grants and, you know, opportunities are out there for us, because, you know, it might also help us in drafting future strategic plans or policies. So I think it would be really beneficial if we could do that.
Yeah, no, I think that is probably part of the plan, but I'll
Yeah.
certainly pass it along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
I was glad you raised transportation so much.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, it's interesting to think about, and I've had this conversation maybe with people on this committee too, about the bus fleet and the possible electrification of the bus fleet, whether it's through D or buying our own buses, which I know is a big capital consideration, but it's something that would have big dividends energy-wise. You look at transportation costs, and we look at energy costs and how there's so much uncertainty. We talk about that all the time. You know, there's so much uncertainty, and hopefully that would help stabilize some of those costs, both by going electric and by bringing that in-house. And then we think about, you know, we've talked about start times for so many years and how we are, you know, transportation is so integrally intertwined with the start time conversation, and just thinking about what advantages and flexibility we would gain possibly That's sort of with the owning in-house, you know, but, so I'm wondering, as we look at kind of master plan, school configuration things, I know we've talked about transportation being part of that, so I'm wondering if electrification slash, you know, investing in our own buses more might be part of that as well. I don't know if that's.
There are programs out there as well. I've been reading actually on that recently of various like corporations who are helping districts do that initial capital expense on getting in that bus fleet. So there's definitely opportunities out there. Do we have an update on our feasibility study? Because I kind of feel like some of this will tie in on.
No.
Or we don't.
No.
We don't have the money yet.
No.
Do we? I can't
It's-
remember
it's-
where.
It's part of the capital.
That's the capital. Okay, for June. Okay.
Yeah, and certainly one of the things we had thought about is this idea of, well, if we invested in some EV buses, could we then lease them to someone else to run, if that might be a model that might be a little bit more functional?
Yeah, you read my mind. I mean, there are definitely some advantages of owning our own fleet. Other school districts have done it. It is a capital expenditure, but I mean, Acton did it within recent years. That was the way Acton achieved later school start times, is they invested in their own fleet and managed their own fleet. I don't know that that's an EV fleet, but I think that there's some exciting opportunities there, and yes, maybe we could combine those goals to electrify and own our own fleet. I think would give us a lot of financial stability and also control over our transportation in a way that could be really helpful over the long term.
And it's a capital expense, but we're paying for that capital through our contract with B. So it's bringing it in-house, stabilizing it potentially, and yeah.
I was thinking about transportation, and the student council ran a like anti-idling campaign 2 years ago, and we have signs up now prohibiting idling, but it is something that I definitely still see, like looking outside the classrooms and even in the student lot. So it might be a good idea to look into like how the schools can enforce that rule better. I don't know.
Well, I think it's one of those things like smoking outside or something. Like it's going to take, you know, everyone getting on board and us talking about it in public like this. So, you know, kind of everyone will police themselves, right? I mean, it's.
Or student council could police. How
Yeah.
about you guys just go out
Yeah.
there?
Knock on windows. Have you seen this boy?
The other part of that conversation, though, is actually why are people showing up so early, you know, and why are they idling for so long? So maybe there is more conversations to be had about our traffic flow issues and access to, you know, the actual flow and all that. So I think it's part of probably a bigger, you know, issue rather than just trying to stay warm in the middle of the winter.
Good point.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, that's actually a town bylaw. It's not a district policy. It's a town bylaw.
I don't think it's a state law.
It's a state. Oh, it's state.
Okay.
I didn't know it was state. I just thought it was Westford. Okay.
Probably.
Good to know.
I just want to say too. So I'm a TA, and I end up doing like a lot of photocopying. So I see like the exorbitant amount of paper being used by well, in the recycling bins. I see it, maybe copies that didn't come out right. I see a lot of teachers using that, and to a certain extent, actually, I really understand it because I do understand the idea of having learning being better done through physical handwriting. But one way I was just thinking that could really help sort of reduce at least paper is a lot of times teachers have us make physical copies of our essays and hand it in to them for the sole reason that it makes it easier for them to grade it physically. And I was just thinking that creates like a lot of paper usage, which if it's for the reason of they want to physically, hand correct it, maybe a solution could be getting them iPads where they could physically, because they can't do that on a laptop. It makes it harder with the typing, but if they have an iPad where they can physically just write notes and keep going the same way they would do with a pen and a paper, that genuinely, it would reduce so much paper usage. Because think about it, like one student maybe uses 5 to 6 pieces of paper for one essay, and that too it's double spaced, so a lot of paper being used. Then that's like maybe 20 kids per class already. One class has like 100 pieces of paper being used. So like, if we could even just reduce that possibly, and also fix sort of the reasoning that teachers give, which I totally understand. You know, there's like little ways maybe I feel like we could also help with the paper usage at our school.
Right.
Other comments or questions for Catherine? Well, this was really good. I think there's energy and excitement around thinking of ideas, but then thinking about how we work together. And so with that, you know, is this something that do we need a liaison to the committee? Do we invite you back on a regular basis? I'm just trying to think, and
I'm happy to come back anytime.
I'm open to having the committee as well. Yeah. How we want to make sure that we have momentum and that we're checking in frequently, because this is really important. I mean, some things will be happening, again, the Amoresco, you know, some things are already happening and you're going to be in the loop on those, but specifically think about this committee and how we stay apprised of things.
Even as we develop our new improvement plans, I mean, having some, you know, buy-in would be awesome in that as we develop that.
I think I would say we're probably still at a very strong, we need to educate plan. And to Sean's point, like, we first need to get people to understand why they need to do these things. Because there are things that, like, people come up with ideas that have somebody else do something, right? Like, it really has to be, it has to be, the students need to want to do it, the students need to remind their parents, the parents need to want to do this. You know, like, when we think about the idling situation, it's like, you could have someone stand out there and maybe give a citation if there was actually a fine for something that was attached to it, but, you know, beyond that, we're asking someone else to do something, as opposed to, are we really just getting the students to own it? Are we getting teachers to rethink the way that they're, as opposed to, I think these are good ideas, but it's better if people are now thinking about their own usage in the first place, and if we can model that, I think that's the first step. Yeah.
Well, and I think sometimes, you know, students are the biggest motivator for change. I know in my own family, my middle daughter, you know, became, we called her the little green police. And if I walked out of a room and I did not turn that light off, that, you know, little face was popping up going, Mom, are you going back into that room? Oh, you're not? That light's on. And, you know, she had a dramatic impact as a very little person on all of our thinking and awareness, and it just kind of became woven into the fabric of what we did as a family. But it all started with her.
I also think, though, I mean, this is not new information, though, at the same time. I know we talk about starting with education, but this information has been around, you know, for years at this point. It's pretty well highlighted. I think it's also time for some action items along with that education.
I will say, though, I'm going to disagree a little bit, only because you and I like to do this. But when you said that this is going to be happening by the rising kindergartners, my heart stopped when you said that, right? Because to think about any change that truly would happen from kindergarten to when, by the time they graduate, it will be a different thing altogether, that's going to happen quickly. And so I feel like the reason why that happens is because it happens with students, right? Even as we describe this, because having been at a middle school for 7 years, middle school students know that they can change the world. No offense, but when they get to the academy, they stop being as active at the academy level because you become so involved in different things. So there's something that you'll be passionate about, but it's not the same way. If you remember when you're in middle school, you're like, oh, and then and so we lose the kids because we're not necessarily following the momentum. And again, we all know as parents, when our kids are telling us things and we decide that, okay, you just don't know enough right now, we need to really, I think, support that pressure from the elementary schools onto the parents, right?
Oh, I think it's both.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if we're modeling it though, you know, even as Magna says, that teachers are maybe saying, you know what, guys, we're not going to do copies, we're going
That's
to
right.
figure something else out. You know, I'm the biggest believer of one of the first thinkings of, it's not just the 3 R's anymore of reduce, reuse, recycle. It's actually the first one above all of it is to refuse. Do I stop and think, do I really need this? Can I figure out another way to go about it? And, you know, so it's more about obviously the education part of it, but also for us to start modeling those action items too.
Well, and
that
one
we
of the
can
things
do.
we've done with that, and
Yeah.
just a lot of industries have done this, is that if you want something printed, you print it,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Which is kind of a different way of going about things, where you could
Yeah.
sort of lay down the groundwork
Yeah.
as to what we waste.
And just to bring things back a little bit, but a lot of the recommendations are looking at buildings and looking at vehicles, right? I mean, those are the big,
That's a big leverage
those are things that
points.
the students
Yeah.
are definitely not gonna be doing.
Yeah.
They're not installing solar panels, so we
I
will.
I mean, yeah,
Right?
practical.
Have you been to the STEM fairs lately?
I know.
Have you been to some of these STEM fairs? I don't know.
These
Kids are like,
Whoosh. The fifth graders go up on the roof and install solar panels. I just think that's a bad idea, but
I don't know.
I take the point. So I do think, you know.
And we are working towards purchasing our first electric vehicle,
Right.
love it.
right? So that is something that we are committed to. We just have to then figure out how you can do it when it's not just one vehicle.
Yep.
So at the very least, I think it would be great to have somebody from the committee come back. We always say that, we're like, oh, come back in the fall, but I think that probably makes sense, you know, just to make sure we're checking back in
Well,
after the summer, and we're gonna know more, we're gonna have results, we're gonna have something to talk about, so maybe we can kind of coordinate when some of these findings come
Yeah.
in,
Yeah.
and as we look at, what we're looking at long-term as far as transportation.
In that minimum, Chris, Catherine, if one of us do want to tag along for one of your meetings, when do you folks meet and how do you meet?
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually meet now. So we are every other Monday. So
Every other
7:30.
Monday? And are those are posted by agenda?
Yes.
Okay.
The same as ours. So we should talk about the fall getting on alternating
Yeah.
Mondays.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I would imagine that there's a lot of overlap between the two,
Yeah.
right? So.
Yeah, no, and we would love to come back and
Great.
continue partnerships, for sure.
Okay, that would be
Thank you.
fantastic. This was great.
Thank you. Thank you all so much.
Thanks for all the work
Yeah.
you're doing.
That's
You're
awesome.
welcome to stay. We've got the policy
Thank you.
coming up in a little bit. You're
All
welcome
right,
to
thank you.
Go back to Zoom and watch us there.
Yeah.
Thanks. Okay. Next agenda item is school facility rental procedures. And so we're gonna be looking at the job description for the facility usage coordinator, and we're gonna look at the facility rental fees, the rates that are being proposed. And I just note that they're in the same file in the packet. They're in the facility rental job description document. So you can find both the job description and the rates there. And I welcome Pat Lenhart.
Hi. I wanted to thank you for your support last meeting and your approval that we could advertise the anticipated opening. And so we did run with it. This last week, Paul Fox, myself, and Jan Walsh from my office interviewed. And if it gets approval tonight, we have already submitted the paperwork. It's on hold until the committee's action tonight. And if we're all systems go, we have our,
Oh, wow.
yeah. Yeah.
No pressure.
Yes.
Oh, that's great.
So we
could add things to the job description.
Well, it's an hourly, it's an hourly position, so yes, to change. But, yeah, we're feeling pretty excited. We had a pretty decent, a pretty good candidate pool, and we think we found the right person. I did ask her to hold off. She's not listening. She's rolling already, even though, like, she's not on the clock yet. She's excited. I say that obviously as a compliment. She's excited. She's in touch with me. I think we just interviewed her on Wednesday. Multiple emails since then, including today. Yeah, I'm feeling, we're all feeling good that we got a very strong candidate, and we had other strong candidates also.
Anything else we should know? I'm trying to remember what we've touched on before, but anything you want to highlight from either the rates or job description that we haven't already touched on?
No, not myself. No. I did want to take a second just to follow up on a couple of things that happened earlier in this evening. I just wanted to say, Sean, it was mostly TAs on the transfers, but also within that category are MIs, RIs, speech, OT, librarians, teacher subs, so kind of like
But it's all salaries, right?
It's all salaries.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all
Thank
salaries. Okay, and then the other thing is to follow up on the sustainability. We are already, so we have vans that are off lease, and we're already looking at possibly rotating one in that would be an electric van. We're a little worried about going in heavier than that in case we encounter problems. But there have been 2 meetings already with Dan O'Donnell, Eric, Jen Piper, and myself about how to, structure this moving forward. So that's
for our special education.
Yes, yes. As in the discussion about school vehicles, we can't buy vehicles for D, right? Like that's, yeah. So it's a little bit more complicated. Yeah. Anyway.
Are we happy then with the rates and everything that that
comes
comparable to other?
So we did base it on Bridgewater Raynham. I hope I said that right. And then made sure that we were covering what we thought we needed to cover.
Okay.
So yes.
Yeah, I'm reading the contract. I think it's really great because the insurance is now like $1 million, which is more in line with other districts. Prior to that, because like my organization like dealt with WPS before, the coverage requirement was like $3 million. The difference between $1 million and $3 million, the insurance is from a few $100s to $4,000. So that basically locked out a lot of the organization that couldn't apply.
Yes.
But now with $1 million, a lot of organizations could.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I think generally speaking, industry standard on that kind of thing is $1 million. I'm surprised that you've had a different experience.
I had a different experience because that was approved by like a different school committee many years ago.
The only thing I'd add for anyone who might be watching but didn't hear our earlier discussion of this is that we have reviewed current policy, and all of these changes and advancements in the rental process does comply with our current policy, and that the position that we're talking about is a part-time hourly position and is designed to be budget neutral in terms of being offset by the broader use of our facilities, that this position should pay for itself.
Exactly.
Quick question, just to follow up on the rates. I know we have sort of like people waiting, right?
We do.
Have they seen the new rates? Have you gotten any feedback yet?
So some of the people that are waiting are not going to pay. They
I
just
see.
needed the avenue opened
Pay,
up.
yep.
And then some, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And would you like 2 separate votes, right?
That's the committee's decision.
Yeah, I think we should do them separately.
Yeah, okay.
Other questions or a motion?
Motion to approve the facility rental rates and group classification effective June 1st, 2022.
Second.
Any last discussion? All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you.
Motion to approve the job description for the facility usage coordinator part-time 12-month position.
Second.
Okay.
Sorry, I was trying to think of a joke.
Okay. Great.
was gonna ask for a
We
second.
got a
Second
motion?
for the twice we said two
Position,
times we said
position.
but, okay. Any other questions or discussion? All right, all in favor? Also unanimous, thank you.
Great, there's somebody home watching, feeling really happy right now.
Very good. Welcome.
Congratulations and welcome.
Yeah.
Yes,
We're
right.
excited for that. And you get to stay
I was
for
gonna
our
say.
I do.
financial review.
And I feel good about it because I don't feel like the voice of doom, which has been the last couple of months. Yes, it does feel good. This has been a tough year. This has been a little bit of a tough year. But I feel like, I guess that's good because it's April, we're almost done. But I feel like we're kind of seeing some light at the end of the tunnel. There's not a lot of tunnel left, I do understand that. We are seeing some relief from budget pressures. For each month that a projected out-of-district student does not go out, the vulnerability decreases, right? Because now at this point, you'd be looking at 2 months, right? So 20% of a tuition rather than 70 and 80%, right? So I was able to greatly decrease the projected potential out-of-district placements. We did have some students move out, so the actual went down too, so that helped a little bit. Watching subs like a hawk. Last week, the schools were closed, so that means that the next paycheck, that will be a little lower. We're really watching it. Each pay is like basically a 5% of the overall projection. So we're feeling a little bit better about that. And Chris laughs at me, but I was really feeling badly about not giving the schools any money. It didn't feel good. So we were able to eke out a little bit of money, and when they came back from break, they had a little bit of an allocation in their school budgets to give them a little breathing room. So that felt good. If we still do well and somebody has an additional need, we can probably shake loose a little bit of money, but everything you do is multiplied, right? So what we did was elementaries were 5, the middles were 10, and WA was 15. But so if I gave another 3,000, it's not just 3,000, right? It's 3,000 times 9 schools. So we kept it at that, and hopefully that will get everybody where they need to go across the finish line. We also gave the front offices a little bit of money for supplies to help them get through the end of the year and into the beginning of next year. So feeling a little bit better as far as that goes.
Pat, just to clarify, so this is not additional allocation on top
no.
of
We
what
froze
they,
the budget.
yeah.
We froze the budget. And nobody will this allocation bring them near their per pupil at the beginning of the year. To be honest with you, I swept their money out and then just put it back in at the new allocation amount. Nobody's near their per pupil that they had for FY22.
So and I just want to interrupt you too, because the reason I do like to make fun of Pat about this is because having been a building principal for 7 years, what would happen is every single year the budget would be frozen and then we would not hear anything else about it. Pat has been so communicative and transparent with all of the buildings and with us about giving, okay, you know what, let's get to March 15th and then I'll give you an update. And then she did. She gave him an update on March 15th. And then, and so that was the reason why she feels bad about it, but I'm like, Pat, you don't understand. Your information is making people happy. So it's a good thing.
Although somebody called and they said that they were cold, and I was like, do you have any problem in the building? And they said, yeah, but we have no budget. Our budget's frozen and we're cold. I guess that meant I was I was one of the guys, right? Because they were teasing me, yes.
Yeah, we didn't actually turn the heat off.
Yes.
We didn't actually do that.
So when I sent them a note, I said it wasn't a melt, but it was a little thaw. So anyway, on a really good note, based on the federal government's funding of school lunches wholly at the free level, you know, for those of you who don't know, there's you get a little bit of money if somebody's full paying, very minor. You get a little bit of less money, a little bit more money than full paying, and then free is where you get the most money. And this year it's been all free, and that's really helped their balance sheet. I did speak to Colleen Wallace. There's a real disconnect if you look at the balance sheets that we provide because of the timing. They're like about 4 months behind on reimbursements. So I think the balance sheet shows that we entered the year at 275. That I know. Last year we started with a really healthy balance of 488. FY21 cost that fund 213, so that brings it to 275. The balance sheet will only show us at 305, so that's only 30,000. That's nothing great, right? But if you go by Colleen's food service management program, they're like tracking for like 385, like this astronomical amount. For FY23, the federal government had already said that this funding at free stops September 30th, but the Commonwealth is discussing picking it up. So it would really have the same net effect, right? We don't care whether the money are federal or state. So it's possible we'll have another high earning year. We'll see. I just speak to Colleen about, like, if you need anything in your cafeterias, this is the year to try to, like, are there any needs? And it's under review, it's under discussion. And the federal and state grants are just continuing according to their approved plans, and then the revolving and the special revenue funds. Right now, the budget does not reflect the offset of school choice. It's going to have to. It would never get across the finish line without school choice funds. I think we've discussed earlier the longevity that we're facing, and so we have some additional expenses. Right now in the projection, I am trying to hang on to a small footprint for a deposit to the special ed reserve account. Whether I can truly hang on to that will remain to be seen, but that is a little bit of the plan. So when we have this much left, we have this much that we could use from school choice, and these are what we have still coming. Longevity, and maybe a deposit.
Great.
Awesome.
That'll need a little bit more time.
And what are you thinking as far as, obviously, we won't be having meetings really when Q4 ends. Do you want to come back in June and give us like the,
Certainly.
you know, the 95%
Certainly.
completion?
Certainly, absolutely, absolutely, yes. We'll know a lot by then, because, you know, the payroll, the biggest move, what moves the needle are subs and out-of-district placements at this point, right? So.
Questions for Pat?
I know you spoke about the delays in the food service account, and I know this is really the kind of the first year that we're publishing these,
Yes.
so I apologize if this is just kind of learning curve for seeing these. But can you just talk about how the delay translates into these numbers?
Certainly. So if you look at the numbers on the balance sheet that we provided, if I remember correctly, we're showing, we opened the year at 275,000, and then I think we're just showing at the end of quarter 3 at 305, right?
Yep.
So that would only show that we made $30,000, right? Because why? Because you pay salaries as they're incurred,
Sure.
okay? But if the revenue is 4 months out, you're not showing on the balance sheet the revenue, but you are showing the expense.
Okay. So, like, I mean, the breakdown by schools, for example, for one of the quarters, you would still be able to add up those expenses and those revenues and get the number at the bottom, right?
Oh, certainly. Everything you're looking at adds up.
Okay.
Okay, but it adds to what the district has spent and received, whereas Colleen's are based on reimbursements. Everybody knows Colleen Wallace, right? She's a food service director. Okay, that office reflects the way she runs her books. When she submits, she reflects it. Okay, that wouldn't be like the way our accounting world would do it. Okay, but it's actually helpful.
Got
It's
it.
helpful that she does it a different way.
Got it.
Because she was telling me I'm making money hand over fist, and I was like, well, I'm only showing 30,000, and we dug in a little deeper.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions?
Sorry, I had one more.
Valerie's got one.
I had one more, sorry. I know we're not, I know we're not seeing the offset for school choice. Do you
Yes.
have an estimate that you'd feel comfortable?
So the budget was 316, if I remember correctly,
Okay.
in the vicinity of 320. So I think I have us using a little under 300
Okay.
to give us a little cushion, but that would, I hate to commit to this number, but I'm trying for like a 1 1/4 deposit, $125,000 deposit to special ed reserve. We have about 238, if I remember correctly, in it. I just thought it would help. Because
Certainly.
if you ask me what I worry about in the FY23 budget, one of the things I worry about are out-of-district tuitions. We did not have the bandwidth to budget the contingency that I would have been more comfortable with.
Right.
Okay, so if we could set ourselves up a little bit better there, it would be great.
Okay.
And that's something that I thought that we would first talk about at the finance subcommittee. Maybe you'll say, go all the way up to the 320, right? And then, you know,
Yeah.
it
add
needs a
that.
little bit more time to solidify.
Okay. We're tentatively going to meet next week, so we
Yes.
could.
I
always
actually have
talk.
maybe you and I could talk. I have a
Yes.
little document of some things we could talk
Okay.
about.
Great.
But we'll know a little bit more as we get closer. You know, I have like a placeholder in there for still out-of-district placement, but maybe they will never occur in the next 2 months. I don't know, right? And then we could increase our special ed deposit.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes, the longevity is like 384, it's pretty high.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anything else? Or we can let that go.
Well, I'm gonna stay for
yeah,
executive.
yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Thanks, Pat.
All right, 8:25 agenda item, superintendent evaluation process, and my name is next down. So what I'm gonna do is give a very brief overview. And I believe what we have decided is that you are gonna present your entry plan findings
Yep.
on May 9th.
Yep. May, yeah, I'm trying to remember if that.
Yeah, the next meeting.
The next meeting, yep.
And that would kick off for the committee. We're gonna use that as basically what, would be the evidence for the superintendent evaluation. And so really we're gonna do like a give the committee 4 weeks, a nice long period, or maybe, I don't know if that's long, that's probably typical of what we've done, is about 3 to 4, we usually do 3 or 4 weeks. Yeah. And then, so that would put us at the June 7th or June 6th meeting, where we would present those. And so what that means is at the next meeting, we would collect the templates, the instructions, all the materials that help the committee, and maybe we'll spend a little bit of time just kind of briefly going over it at the next meeting as well, if that's helpful, to get everybody up to speed on what that looks like. And then individual members go and do their evaluations, and then we have somebody collect that and aggregate into one final document. I am happy to do that. I'm also happy if anybody's super excited to do that part of the process, to aggregate. I'm happy to take volunteers for that as well. But and then we would present our evaluation on that June meeting. And hopefully members who maybe are serving on another board somewhere else would still be kind enough to do an evaluation. Absolutely. And we've talked about this. I know when I came on, I got elected. I don't know if any other people have this experience, because we were trying to figure out when this stopped being the practice. And I was here for 3 weeks, and somebody's like, okay, evaluate the superintendent. I'm like, you sure you want me to evaluate the superintendent? And since then, we've changed that so that, we've asked nicely for people who might be leaving if they would want to do that. And so far, I think that's worked out well. So,
Chris, I'm happy to help out and
Okay.
compile it and
Okay.
stuff. I've
All right,
been
we can
doing the
work together.
courses and the
Yeah, I
learning
know.
lunches and stuff.
It's all fresh in your
I love
mind.
it.
It's all fresh there.
All right.
So.
All right, we'll talk
Yeah.
this week, and we'll
Yep.
get going on that. Any other questions? Sound good? Okay.
That's great.
Should be fun. Restorative process. I know we're going to have more to talk about soon with that.
Yeah, we don't have
I
the
don't think
date
we have
set.
anything. We don't.
Yeah, we haven't been,
COVID derailed me from rescheduling.
and then
too.
vacation week.
Yeah.
Just paused that. So we just haven't set up the dates.
The next circles.
Right.
Yep.
We do have, our athletic director, Jeff Bunyan, and Westford Academy principal, Jim Antonelli, along with Dr. Michelle Shannon Mingo, who's been helping as a consultant through this process as well too. They have met with their counterparts in Wayland to talk about what we did is we actually kept the Wayland sports competitions not on our schedules, but we kept those dates free. Mr. Bunyan didn't reschedule other teams when Wayland decided that they weren't going to play us. And so what we've been talking about is ways for those athletes to come together to have conversation, potentially have some type of mixed scrimmage of sorts or something to that effect this spring. And so they've been working on that. And as soon as I think we have more specifics about that, then I'll be able to share that as well too.
Can I ask, I'm just curious, is there a way of, we've been talking so much about the restorative process. I've been really impressed by any, meetings and webinars and stuff I've attended. And I know there's a lot happening at the academy in terms of using it, working with students. Is there a way to maybe formalize that kind of information more and embed it more within our policies and handbooks so that it's more kind of, formalized this is one of the approaches we take within the district. Because I know we'll obviously in the next couple of weeks and months be looking at various handbooks, but it just seems to have been a pretty positive, experience, I think, from anybody I've spoken to in terms of what they've seen and heard or whatever. And I just wonder, should this be something we should be exploring a bit more to kind of maybe more embed within the district?
I think the first thing that we're planning to do is like a big formalized debriefing of that,
Yeah,
right?
awesome.
To then figure out, is the perspective that it has been effective shared, right? And then what types of things are things that we would formalize into language, whether it be a handbook or whether it be a policy. I think that's a great idea, and I think that is kind of part of our thought process, and it's one of the things that we've talked about with the requests that we have for ARPA funds right now, is to bring more formalized restorative training to our faculty, potentially in starting it with a targeted piloted group. So one of the things we had talked about, if we were able to secure that funding, is maybe starting with the freshman class at the academy as a focused group, and then growing it as they go through the academy, as well as, because the idea, and we talked about it briefly before we did, right? When we talked about the idea that the elementary schools and the middle schools have a different structure in place that would allow for sharing resources with the teachers. It might be a little bit easier for them to roll something out, whereas the actual structure in the way that students meet on a regular basis at the academy is not quite the same. So we thought if we kind of created a targeted opportunity for the freshmen, that might be a way to do that. So that wouldn't necessarily be policy or handbook, but that would just be a different structure as well too. So I think all of those things are things that we'll be looking at the end of this year. I think it'll be things that we'll be looking at over the summer as well too.
And I was going to highlight the ARPA funding request, because I think to really do the work, like you do have to have training. You have to. It can be time consuming to do restorative, practices, and so you want to be careful not to put it in and say you're going to do it if you don't know how, or you're not really going to do it. Because a lot of people do. A lot of people will use it because it is becoming more of a buzzword. But to really do it, you want to make sure you're doing it right.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be interesting to see how it evolves. Hopefully tomorrow night they'll get to it, and hopefully they'll see the positive in it and approve that. I think that would be really huge. And then we could start to really more formally use it, not just reactively, like like we're seeing right now is more reactive, but proactively for any number of situations and different schools.
When is that kind of debrief? I mean, I don't know if you've anything formalized yet on.
We're still kind of waiting to get the last community circles, and then a part of that thing is we've talked about having a more formalized culminating. Some similar to the introductory webinar that we did, have a culminating event that can at least talk about that process, and I feel like it would have to be after that.
Yeah.
But before the end of the school.
Yeah. No, I think it would be really helpful maybe to hear from Jim Antonelli and Michelle Shannon, Mingo, along with I can't remember the restorative pathways. There we go. To also see, obviously that's the community, we had the community side, but to see the impact that they felt within the school side of it as well. So that it would be really, I think, lovely to have a conversation with them and continue to see what we can take and learn from this.
That's the kind of thinking of what that would be part of it.
Awesome.
And I know it's sort of been said, but I would be really interested to see, as part of that event, some sort of like feedback loop, right, from not just the students too, but the wider community, because all along I feel like that's been part of the discussion, is that this didn't just impact WA students, this didn't just impact a basketball team, this also had that kind of ripple effect throughout the community. And we know that when we first started talking about this, it was sort of this nebulous idea, right, that wasn't universally welcomed, right, or at least was a little skeptical from some community members. And so I just want to make sure we're closing that loop to to give everyone a chance to say, we liked it, or here's what I thought about it.
Anything else? That must mean it's time for
The Alicia Show.
Policy Palooza.
Policies. Everyone's favorite time of night.
We've got some second readings
Yes.
of our prior 7 policies. I was
So-
definitely entertain a motion on that.
Motion to waive the reading of P7107, P7211, P403, P7403, P7404, P7405, P7406, and P7408.
Second.
You guys sure you don't want to read them all?
I mean, we can, but you're going to be subjected to my Boston accent.
All right. All right, that's a motion and a second. All in favor of waiving the reading of the policies? It's unanimous.
Okay, so just to remind everyone, the first and so all of the meetings policies, the primary impetus for reviewing these was there's an MGL that was appealed. That meant we needed to update our policies. Most of the updates are things we were already doing anyway, but MASC had some draft policies, some good language to look at. It's already been through KP Law. KP Law made some changes. The naming policy is a leftover from a few years ago when the public asked us to review that, and then COVID happened and everything ground to a halt. So we included naming with this because it feels sort of organizational. Policy Subcommittee has met, but we had 0 public comment on any of these policies. None. I'm surprised. Who doesn't want to talk about meetings policies? I enjoyed it. Policies on policies. So what we're doing tonight is we'll open the floor to discussion if anyone has any questions or comments, and then tonight would be the vote on these policies.
Perfect.
That's it.
Floor is open. Questions or comments? No comments from the public? That's,
No
it
comments.
I think it speaks to how well the policies were written.
Well, honestly, the feedback from KP was great too, KP Law, because it really helped us. So MASC had included wording in there about the reasons for executive session. KP Law adjusted them to be more like their one sheet so that it was more in line with how we read them. So that was fantastic feedback. So, and it's the same reasons, it's just the wording is more in line, so.
And honestly, just as a reminder, both to the committee and whoever might be listening, just how valuable it is just that we're going through our policies.
Yes.
Right, like we didn't do that for so long.
Yeah.
You know, those who have been on the policy subcommittee or have looked at our policies know the date, April 9th, 2001, because a raft of policies were approved that night, apparently.
I
and
found out what happened there.
I-
Erica told me. It was MASC digitized their policy database, and school committees across the state were just like, we'll take it.
We'll take it.
And 2001,
And
there
so
it was.
many haven't been
Have not been
really, or,
touched.
I mean,
Yeah.
they've all been hopefully looked at, I
Balanced.
mean,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
to go through and really,
Yeah.
we want to be doing this, so just
Yep.
thank you so much to the committee, the subcommittee for doing that and updating it.
I just wanted to add something. I just found these all really helpful and timely because a lot of them are things that I feel like we have sort of taken a breath and like you mentioned you guys worked in the meeting protocols, right? That's kind of a new thing. We're also trying to clear the deck of our executive session minutes, right? Like that's mentioned in there. Just feels like a really good timing wise to feel like they match what we're trying to do. So that's all. Just wanted
Other comments, questions, or motions?
My only other, because I won't be here, my only other recommendation is when the state decides whether or not they're going to continue with the remote meeting option, because it was temporary and then it was extended into the summer. If the state decides they want to include that, you should pull these policies again and see if they need any updates, because KP Law did flag that as this is happening, but it's temporary, and you never put temporary things in policy. So it would bear a review if the state comes back with additional guidance on that, more permanent guidance on that.
I think, what's our, June 15th, is that our?
June
is that our
15th, I
date?
think, is its
Date?
current expiration date, but the way they've bumped it out, I don't know what will happen, so keep an eye on it. I'll go for a motion then. Motion to approve P7107 organizational meetings, P7211 school naming policy, P7403, notification of school committee meetings, P7404, executive sessions, P7405, agenda format, P7406, rules of order, and P7408, voting procedures.
Motion and a second. All in favor of approving those 7 policies? Unanimous.
Fantastic. So for my next motion, motion to waive the first reading of P2114, Clean Energy and Sustainability, P5406, Student Voice and Student Advisory Committee, P5407, Student Representatives to School Committee, P6125, Student Services Programs, and P6126, Special Instructional Programs, Programs for Students with Special Needs.
Second?
Second. All in favor of waiving the reading?
Okay, so there's only 5 for this one. These are a bunch of other policies that have been on deck for us. Gloria had I'll let you explain, let me back up. Clean energy and sustainability, we already mentioned tonight. That was a joint policy that we developed over the winter with the Clean Energy and Sustainability Committee. It's fantastic. Erica Cole did a ton of the legwork on that. It's a great policy. Student services programs and special instructional programs are policies where we were actually missing. They're fairly pro forma. You should have these departments, you should have these processes. We didn't have the policies about them, but we have those departments and we have those processes. So this was another one of those, let's make sure we have all the policies we're supposed to have policies. I did, before this came to all of you, I did go over it with Courtney Moran. She tweaked some language for us for small things like MASC had used the word children, but you're also eligible for services from 18 to 22, so why wouldn't you use the word student because they're not children at that age? So Courtney's feedback was fantastic. And then, Gloria, if you want to give a brief overview of the other 2 policies.
Sure. The first one, P5406, was previously just called the Student Advisory Committee. We have broadened it to discuss student voice and the value of student voice in general. So some of this language did come from an MASC model policy, and we're talking about the value of student governance within their own schools and also student interaction with this committee. We've certainly seen the power of that through our representatives and also through other students who have come to present to us this year and in the past. So we're codifying and putting in that we want to hear from our students. We want them to come talk to us here at school committee and have an impact at the district level as well. We also put in details about the Student Advisory Committee. In the past, we've done this in kind of an ad hoc kind of way where student council has maybe come before our meeting every other month and has kind of talked to members of the committee kind of informally. But when we really dig into the MGL, it does specify a 5-student committee that meets with at least a subset of this committee on a regular basis. So we are putting that into formal practice, and it will be a 5-student committee from Westford Academy, 1 student from each grade, 2 seniors. And that the school committee chair will designate a subset of the school committee to meet with those students on a regular basis, and that can either, at discretion of the chair and discretion of the committee, that can be a set subset of people who does that on a regular basis, or we could rotate. We could kind of take turns. So it has some flexibility for how this committee wants to do it next year and how other committees want to do it in the future. Those meetings are not subject to open meeting law if it's a sub-quorum group from school committee. If it's a quorum group of school committee, then it would be subject to open meeting law and would be posted and would be a public meeting. That group of 5 self-selects a chair. The chair from that group of 5 would become one of our student representatives at all of our meetings. P5407 goes into a little more detail about the student representatives to school committee and clarifies that the chair of that what did we call it? STADCOM. It's another SAC, and we have too many SACs. So we'll have to come up with a good acronym for it. Maybe that can be their first order of business. But the chair of that 5-student committee would be one of the representatives, and the other representative, while the MGL only requires one, we've historically had 2, and we like having 2. It's a nice dynamic. And so the second one would be coming from the Westford Academy Student Council. This is all kind of happening in parallel with kind of an expanded student government at Westford Academy. So they, I'll have to see if Megan can bring it for a future meeting. She has like a graphic that she and Dean Murphy developed that kind of shows kind of the new components and all the components of how they're broadening student governance at Westford Academy. That's very exciting. So thank you to Dean Murphy. And yep, there it is. Ooh.
Sorry, this is a draft. Maybe I shouldn't be sharing.
Handy dandy. You're fast.
That's pretty close.
And thank you to Dean Murphy. Thank you to Megan Kumar and also Eric Planky, who met with me as we were kind of developing these policies while they were working through some of their improvements at Westford Academy. So exciting stuff.
I do have to throw kudos to you as well. It's been, we've had some awesome conversations, but you've been driving the whole thing the whole year, so well done, Gloria. It's very exciting to see the student voice expanding and the opportunities of what's going to happen at the Academy next year. So,
all inspired by them.
So, reminder on the process of this. So these 5 policies will go up for public comment tomorrow on April 26th. They will be up through Tuesday, May 11th.
Yeah.
And then the policy subcommittee will review them. They will go up for discussion on May 9th, the full committee meeting, and then the second reading and vote will be on May 23rd. So again, that will be public comment on the district webpage under the school committee policies header, up first thing tomorrow morning.
Did we waive the reading of these?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I've lost track.
We did. We did.
Any other questions or comments about these policies? Okay, everyone out there go read them. Send in your comments. Great. All right, well, that's the end of the agenda, folks.
Motion to adjourn to executive session to discuss a strategy with respect to Unit E collective bargaining, as an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position. The committee will not return to public session.
Second.
Catherine with the second. It's a roll call vote. Catherine?
Aye.
Ming-Chen? Alicia?
Aye.
Valerie?
Aye.
Aye. Sean?
Aye.
Gloria?
Aye.